Hello and welcome to a special report from Catholic Family News. We have been over the past 2 years tracking the effects of Traditionis Custodes and Pope Francis and Cardinal Roche's attempt to stamp out the traditional Latin Mass, particularly in diocesan communities. And we have been, particularly of late, helped in this attempt to report what's going on by Brian Marchand, who has you probably recognize his name. He has written for our monthly newspaper several reports and articles on a variety of topics. He also helped us break the story about what was happening in North Carolina. So he's going to join us because he has found yet another instance of destruction. With a happy ending at the end, but an attempt to destroy a Latin Mass community in Corpus Christi, Texas. And joining him will be Libby Ibanez, who is a 2020 convert to the Catholic faith, who is a member of the Latin Mass community in Corpus Christi until its recent demise. She is married, the mother of 4 children. So welcome both of you to Catholic Family News.
Thank you, Brian.
Hi.
So Libby, why don't we start with just your story? As you've told me, and as I just mentioned, you converted about 3 years ago. Tell us about how you found the traditional Latin Mass.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my family and I came into the church via the personal ordinariate of the Chair of St. Peter. We are converts from Anglicanism. We were living in Austin at the time, so the ordinariate was all the way in San Antonio, and I heard of the Latin Mass that was at the cathedral in Austin. So that's where we started attending. And really it was because it looked a lot like the ordinariate Mass. And so we started attending at the St. Mary's Cathedral, and that was it for us. We didn't look back. We were still kind of going to the ordinariate back and forth, but really it was the Latin Mass that solidified, kind of made our choice to become Catholics, made it feel like the right choice. We never really attended the Novus Ordo. I think we went several times. It was a huge stumbling block for my family because it just looked a lot like what we were coming from already. And so we started attending in Austin, and then my husband got a job transfer to Corpus Christi, and that's where we found St. John's. And it had a daily Latin Mass every day at noon except Thursdays, and it had the Sunday Latin Mass at 10 a.m. And so when we came here, we weren't really expecting a big community because the cathedral in Austin had it had a community, but there's people from all over, right, would come to Mass, and it was at 3:30 in the afternoon. And so it was a big struggle to keep everyone together in that community feel. But when we got to St. John's here in Corpus, it just was something else. I mean, it was a homeschooling community. There was stuff for families. Like we were doing adoration, family holy hours. All the boys would serve. So Father Vasquez had all the boys dress out. So it was like 60 boys on any given Sunday serving Mass. There was boys serving Mass every day of the week. And then the homeschool community, because we met on St. John's campus, they would go to Mass. And so it was, St. John's was like kind of perfect. It really was.
So about what would you estimate or Sunday Mass or the size of the community? And what was it like? You've mentioned homeschooling families, but was it a lot of young families? Was it older people? Just give us a rough characterization.
Oh man. So about 400 people on average on a Sunday. I mean, packed. People standing up against walls. And it was a wonderful mix of, we had young families, and we had young adults, and we had older people who grew up with the Latin Mass and then were attending St. John's. And when I talk about young families, I'm talking about like families with like 7 kids, 8 kids. I mean, babies are crying, and like the moms and dads, we didn't have a cry room. And so the moms and dads like in the hallways, like holding babies. And oh man, it was just a mix of people.
Wow. So sounds like a thriving community. Brian, why don't you give in and tell us, so what did the diocese do? So there was this almost every day,
Oh yeah.
6 days a week, Latin Mass. Brian, what did you find? What did the diocese do recently to this community?
Yeah, so I mean, and Libby, and then a couple others that I'd talked to were experts on what was going on the ground. But my understanding, Libby can add to it, was somewhere around or before um, uh, Easter. It was actually probably, I think, around Palm Sunday. Libby, you can correct that, but Palm Sunday 2023. They basically got the homeschool community got a message from their pastor saying that the bishop had decided to eliminate the Latin Mass. He had some, not real specific about the reasons, other than they weren't going to have anybody to say it anymore. And then he put something that was actually on their website. It was very difficult when I was trying to find stuff. It was very difficult to find, but it was obviously a direct result of the Cardinal Roach rescript. And based on my understanding and what I remember, is this was, he announced it, and within the next 2 weeks, it was basically gone, right? And then the thing that I also found very interesting, that Libby and others talked about, was just the number of people. I mean, I believe, and Libby, correct me, but it was the largest mass for the parish, probably the largest. I think I'd even put in some numbers as far as the largest contributor to the parish, as far as dollar amounts for the parish. And
Yes.
it was just pulled without warning, and was it.
It's interesting how they do these things right around liturgical feasts, right? That's kind of interesting. So right before Easter, in a situation we were involved in a state north of Texas, sometimes Texans call Greater Texas, Oklahoma, same exact thing. It was Laetare Sunday when 13 years ago they tried to get rid of the Latin Mass there. It's kind of interesting how it's always right around that. Christmas, we get the the blessing of immoral blessings coming out right before Christmas. Kind of interesting. But in any event, you get this letter. Now, I'd like to this excuse. There's no priest to say mass. You mentioned a priest. What happened to him? Why was he no longer available to say mass? Libby?
He wasn't. Are you talking about Father Vasquez, or the priest that would sub for Father Vasquez?
It was Vasquez. It was Vasquez.
There was, yeah. So Father Vasquez, he resigned. So I'm not privy to all the inner workings of it, but so we moved to Corpus. A big reason why we decided on Corpus is because Bishop Mulvey had invoked was it Canon 87, where basically he's protecting the Mass, right?
Yes.
And so we're like, great. This is perfect. We'll just move there and we'll have the Latin Mass. It's protected with a supportive bishop. And then all of a sudden, a letter comes out that making it seem like Father Vasquez wasn't going to say the Mass any longer. And that turned out to not be true. And then we thought, oh, well, it's just because we don't have a priest to say it, right? Father Vasquez resigned, so we don't have a priest. We had another priest in the diocese who would sub for Father Vasquez. And so he couldn't say the Mass for us. He had asked to be the pastor of St. John's after Father Vasquez left and was denied. And so it really was clear that it was like no Latin Mass in my diocese. Like that was the message.
Sorry. So where is Father Vasquez now? He's just left.
Yeah. So, okay. So he, as far as I know to this date, he wasn't laicized, or no disciplines on him. As far as I know, the correct term would be like a leave of absence. He is currently living in San Antonio doing secular work.
Wow. Okay. So we mentioned sort of numbers, and that's kind of another interesting story, because these people who not only want to destroy the faith and destroy the liturgy also are not very smart financially. So what was the St. John's used to publish their bulletin online and list the collections. What were sort of the numbers of the weekly collections that
They
were
still
being
do.
taken in? Oh, I was under the impression they stopped as of June. Is that not?
Oh, wow.
Oh, well, so we'll get to that in a second.
So the last several bulletins, they no longer publish. Okay. So, yes, they would publish the collections, and we're talking, 10,000 was average, 10,000 a week was average for our parish to collect. As far as I know, we were one of the top parishes, bringing in money every Sunday financially. So it's clearly money isn't an issue. You know what I mean? Like for a bishop to cancel a Latin Mass that's thriving financially and stuff. I mean, they don't care about the money. That's for sure because
So
I mean,
bringing in,
we had $14,000 Sundays, 10,000. I mean, on up.
so let's say 10 to 14,000 a week. Then Brian, from your research, what happened to those collections after the Latin Mass community was thrown
Mhm.
out?
Yeah, and again, I'm going on memory, but I remember it being, down to like the 7,000 range, and I think it was, it was a more than 25% drop. I might be being conservative on that, but it was more of a, for the next several Sundays. And again, I only went up to when I wrote the story than what was published externally back then, but it was a very significant drop in the overall collection for the parish.
But then I was also under the impression from your reporting that they just stopped publishing online, at least the bulletin. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I think for a while the numbers weren't out there. Is what I remember. But
And again, you can't necessarily, it doesn't prove that they were so low, but it's kind of interesting that they're dropping and then you just stop reporting.
Right.
right,
That's kind of
yeah.
interesting. So your community is basically just said goodbye. We don't want you anymore. What did people do? What did you do? What did your family do?
Yeah. So our last Latin Mass was Easter Sunday, and that whole week, that Holy Week, was really kind of bittersweet because so many people came that week to support us. I know Palm Sunday we come from San Antonio and Austin and all over just to support our Mass, and then Easter Sunday was just, I mean, there was standing room only. Then Low Sunday comes, right, the Sunday after, and SSPX at the time was only coming once a month, so that was their one Sunday. So we're like, oh great, we have another Mass, right? So about half of our community came to the SSPX. There's about 200 people that showed up that Sunday. To my knowledge, Father Reed was expecting us. Father Reed is our SSPX priest. Father Vasquez had talked to him and the coordinator, the SSPX coordinator that's here in town, just about like be prepared for an influx of people. And so there was 200 people. It was a lot. It was really nice to see familiar faces.
Yeah, and Libby, I believe I might have covered this, or we'd talked before, or it might have even been, I don't know if I had a talk with a priest or not, but the society was talking about, because of the small number of people that were attending, like 30 or less once a month, that the priest had maybe even indicated prior to his superior that they were maybe going to pull the Mass because of how his travel distance and the number of people prior to that week. Is that correct?
Yes, we were on the chopping. Well, the Corpus Christi mission was on the chopping block, and 200 people show up Low Sunday, and then July, I believe it was July, that we got every Sunday except First Sunday Masses. So it happened. We were expecting a year. We thought maybe a year would go by to show, like, oh, look at the numbers we can bring. But oh no, it was July. And starting in July, every Sunday except First Sunday. And now our Father Reed petitioned his bishop for every single Sunday plus holy days of obligation.
Wow. So, and now they don't even have a church. This first Mass you went to was in a hotel or something. Is that right?
And not just a hotel, like a hotel probably 20 minutes on the outskirts of town, in a kind of like a shady spot of Corpus, off of Leopard Street. It was nice, it was okay, it was big, but like, it a lot of people actually didn't come to the SSPX because of it was in that hotel. And so and then we were coming to the end of the contract in January. And so we were kind of like, well, what do we do? So we were looking at, well, can we rent a space, and then the hotel started doing all this construction. And so you couldn't even really get to where you needed to go. And so I don't know who thought of it or who asked the place where we meet now, but we're actually in a funeral home chapel in Portland. It's a beautiful chapel. It's got wooden pews. It has a place for the altar, steps. I mean, it's so nice. And it's less expensive than what we were paying at the hotel.
Wow. So you all show up Low Sunday.
Yeah.
Father Reed, and I know Father Reed. I've known him since he was a seminarian. Actually, wonderful wonderful priest. He responds. By July, you're getting at least most of the Sundays a month. Now they've moved it to a better location, talking about building. Now, Father Reed is coming from the El Paso, or which priory is he coming from?
No, he's actually coming from Dickinson.
Dickinson.
So
Okay, so he's
he, I think he's over 3 or 4 of mission chapels. Like he starts off near Tyler, and then when we're the last mission of the day at 3. Our mass is at 4:30 on Sunday.
Wow. And again, it's funny. Your story reminded me about being in the hotel of a story Bishop Fillet tells. He used to tell back in 2013 when he was in the midst of various negotiations with Pope Benedict's Vatican, when they were offering some kind of potential, which they withdrew, regularization of the society. And he said, I realized they really didn't understand anything about us when they came with a proposal that said, any location where you've been saying mass for the past year, we will declare to be a Catholic church. And he said, so the Ramada Inn on highway so and so is going to become a Catholic church. And he said that's when I realized they really don't understand at all what we've been doing. But I just found that a funny story. But now,
yeah, and then the other thing, Brian, too. I mean, and again, you were there. You heard that from him.
Yes.
But the other part behind that, I would suspect, is okay. Don't expand. Don't have any more missions.
Yes.
We'll allow everything that you have right now, and now be under the obedience of where you can and can't go,
right,
rather than going and finding the one, or in this case, 400 lost sheep. Right? I mean,
right.
It's
exactly.
I mean, the thing. I think one of the things that people who aren't, are either antagonistic against the society or don't understand about it, is the priests and the society, just like in the spirit of Archbishop Lefebvre when he was in Africa, are very missionary oriented and very right. Go and serve the needs of more than one lost sheep nowadays, right? So
yes, wherever they are, absolutely right.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, how are things? Again, oftentimes a lot of people come to something for the first time, but how has it been? Has your community continued going there? How many people are generally going to mass in your now funeral home?
So our average Sunday, we're averaging about 120 consistently. So some people have gone back to diocesan church parishes. We know some families that travel to the indult mass that's in Far, Texas, under the Bishop of Brownsville, I believe. And then some people travel to FSSP, but we have 120 on average, and we're getting new faces. Thank you, Pope Francis, for that. We have
He's the best recruiter. He's the best. I was going to say Pope Francis is the best recruiter.
We have 7 to 10 altar boys. Well, and we have a high mass. So every Sunday is a high mass. So we have Scola, and our boys, because most of them were serving at St. John's, know how to serve high mass. And so we have that every Sunday. Which Father Reed even said he never expected to say a high mass in Corpus Christi, Texas. And we have our community. So our community still meets every first Saturday. So we still have supporters of our Latin Mass community that don't necessarily attend the SSPX for whatever reason. So we have Michaelmas. We had a Michaelmas party. We had just had an Epiphany party. And then like my husband hosts a once a month men's night where they come over, smoke cigars, chat. And so we're still like a very cohesive group. And we're very positive. So it's been nice. It hasn't been awful. It's been rough, but not awful. It's been very edifying.
Wow. And how is your, so I don't know, what are the ages of your children? They're younger, or?
Okay. I have a 6-year-old daughter. I have a 10-year-old son, a 13-year-old daughter, and a 14-year-old son.
How have they reacted to this kind of upheaval, this change?
Oh,
What's been their reaction?
So at first, my kids went to daily mass every day. My boys served every day. When the mass was taken away from us, I mean, my kids literally cried. But then when the SSPX came and things just kind of business as usual without daily mass. So both of my sons are serving. My 14-year-old is a master of ceremonies. And he's actually heading up the start of the Art Confraternity of St. Stephen with our missionary chapel. My 13-year-old daughter's in the Scola. They love it. Father Reed has been nothing but helpful. I want people to know, like, the SSPX the priests of the SSPX are very helpful. He answers questions, and especially for the kids. So we have 12 confirmands right now, and he does a confirmation class after Mass on Sundays. And he just, like, the way he talks to these kids, I mean, they're wonderful. He's wonderful. And so the kids, I think all of the kids, not just my kids, have just really hit the ground running. All the boys are still serving. The same kids that sang in the Scola at St. John's are singing in the Scola here. I mean, we really have carved out a little place for our community with the SSPX.
It's interesting. I want to follow up on that a little bit because we had an experience. I've talked to others this way who were told, oh, don't go to the SSPX. That's just mean and nasty, and you're going to get literally this. You're going to get this mean old priest who's just going to yell at you all the time and tell you you're going to hell and you're all sinful, and say everything you're doing that's wrong. And literally, that's what we were told. And again, knowing Father Reed, that's the opposite. Describe him. But what did you have any kind of experience like that? Some or maybe impressions of what you were going to find, and then surprised by what you did find?
No, actually, my husband and I have always been SSPX friendly. Like, I've actually never heard any of those things, anything negative about the society priests. Father Reed, when this whole thing first started, I want to say 3 masses, the first 3 Sundays, he would stay after Mass for well over an hour, just getting peppered by our community with questions, right? Like, how are you able to function? Why don't you submit to the bishop? And he, and like, I want to say, like, we were kind of, I don't want to say meaner, but like, we were more strict and more scary than I think any of the priests are. But he was just so graceful with his answers, and he was very pastoral. You can tell they're very mission minded. He had an answer, and he gave us, like, books. He would hand out books. Like, he gave us the Catechism of the Crisis in the Church. He handed those out, and I mean, just he stays, answers questions. He's great. And Father Purdy came one Mass also, and I did expect Father Purdy just to be kind of more militant, but oh man, he was so good. Like, it's just, I don't know, every SSPX priest that I've met so far, because Father Z from San Antonio has also come to us on a first Sunday. He was able to give us, I think one month we had a Mass every single Sunday, and he was very kind. So no, SSPX priests are very kind, very pastoral. They go like the extra 10 miles. I mean, I don't know how they sleep.
Amen.
Yes. No, and it's a good point, because we've noticed that over the years. Obviously, it's a group of several hundred people. They all have different personalities, right? Father Purdy, as you say, is a former military. I wouldn't want to meet him in a dark alley somewhere. Right? Definitely shakes your hand, and it's a firm handshake. But again, different personalities. Others more intellectual, But what I've always found is, despite those differences of personality, you find a real coherence in doctrine, in thinking, in approach to the faith that's uniform among the priests.
Yeah. The formation is very consistent throughout that I've experienced.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, wonderful. We're happy that your, people have found a home there. We had a very similar experience in the situation I referred to, where, it seemed against all odds. How could you fit another mission in? Like you're saying, the priests are already going to several. But I can tell you our story. The then district superior, who was French, when I called him and said, well, it was supposed to get canceled after Easter, it just got canceled today. He said, tell everyone you will have a priest next Sunday if I have to fly him from France. And that's the kind of attitude it sounds like you found there, that where there's a need,
Wow.
we will move heaven and earth literally to get there. But anything else you'd like to add? Anything else you'd like to add about your story that you haven't shared yet?
No, just we're thriving in Corpus Christi. We're growing. We see new faces just about every Sunday. Um, we've got parish, or not parish, chapel devotions that have started. Like we have a Holy Face devotion that meets in two cities now, in Portland and in Corpus. We're an active community. Like all the stuff that happened with the suppression of the diocesan Latin Mass didn't suppress us.
Wow. Wonderful. What great way to end that.
That's great.
And
Absolutely.
thank you, Brian, for your hard work finding these stories and doing the legwork to investigate them, because it's important that people know and they not lose hope. If something like this happens near them, where God, allows evil to occur or something bad to occur, he brings good out of it, and just have to have that faith that it's for a reason. For those of you who enjoyed watching this video, please help us by sharing, liking, subscribing. Remember our affiliate programs. First, we have Angelico Press, who are publishing almost a new book every week. I see incredible republishing of older books, translations, plus new works. You can support Catholic Family News, and a portion of all purchases supports our apostolate. There's the affiliate link and a QR code. And in addition to them, we also have a program with Sophia Institute Press. And with them, in addition to supporting Catholic Family News, they, for the current time, are also offering a 15% discount to anyone who purchases through our affiliate link. Again, there's the link. It'll be in the description, and a QR code. So particularly for homeschooling parents like Mrs. Ibanez, they're a great source of different books. If you're looking for research books or different books for your children, particularly in high school, you'll find a lot of resources in both of those sites. So thank all of you, and our prayers are with your community that God continues to bless it. And thank you for sharing your story.
Awesome. Thank y'all.